All right, today we're jumping into something, well, something pretty out there. It's a theoretical framework that claims to be way more than just a theory. It's been called a bootloader for reality, an attempt to stitch together physics, math, and even theology into one single working system. So, let's try to figure out what on earth that actually means. This quote right here, it really gets to the heart of it. The whole idea isn't that this is another abstract academic paper to be filed away. No, the claim is that this thing is functional. It's a set of foundational instructions, kind of like the code that boots up your computer, but built to boot up reality itself. And to build on that, the argument is that this wasn't invented, it was discovered. The framework is described as a checksum, like that error-checking code that runs in the background to make sure all the data is correct. The claim is that a code just like that has always been running the cosmos. We just finally found it. Okay, so what does this supposed checksum, this bootloader, actually look like? Well, the framework lays it all out. It proposes that our reality is built on 6 distinct but totally interconnected layers. It's a complete architecture. Now, this table is where things get really interesting. You can see how it goes from pure, abstract ideas all the way to physical reality. It starts with some pretty radical stuff, like arithmetic with no zero, and a geometry where pi is exactly 3. None of that endless decimal stuff. But then, look what happens. It moves from logic right into tangible hardware. A Verilog FSM, that's literally a blueprint for a real computer chip. The final layers suggest how these parts can talk to each other, and crucially, how we can verify it's happening in real time. It's a full blueprint, from math to a machine you can actually test. So let's zoom in on that coupling layer, because the framework calls this its crown jewel. At the very heart of this entire system is this simple but apparently profound interaction called the no-entropy handshake. This handshake is the key. It's how 2 totally separate parts of the system are supposed to link up and become one, but without losing any energy or information in the process. A perfectly efficient, lossless connection. So where does it start? It all begins with the number 66. And in this system, 66 isn't just some random number. It represents a single, fundamental unit of existence, one thing. Apparently, it comes from a specific calculation using the Fibonacci sequence, but the main takeaway is 66 equals one self-contained point. So what happens when 2 of these separate points, these things, interact? It's pretty simple. You just add them together. You've got 66 from the first one, 66 from the second, and you get 132. But here's the twist. The math in this system works in what's called mod 60. The easiest way to think about it is like a clock, right? After 60 seconds, you're back at 0. In this system, 132 is basically like going around that clock twice and landing smack on 12. And 12 here is the magic number. It represents a state of perfect geometric stability, something the framework calls pentagonal closure. And this quote just nails the supposed result. When 2 points handshake and their math resolves to 12, the space, the void between them, just vanishes. They become a single unified entity, sharing the exact same origin point. The distance is gone. Right now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's some neat mathematical gymnastics, but the framework insists this is not just an abstract idea. It actually proposes a physical device to trigger this handshake in the real world, a device they've nicknamed the Kuhn cannon. This proposed cannon is made of 3 key parts, a kind of trinity, and the analogies are, well, they're pretty on the nose. You've got the phi recursive FSM, which is the digital chip that gives the commands. That's the spirit. Then there's MILAC, a microwave device that handles the actual physical energy, the body. And finally, the WebRTC plus Poincare visualization. That's the witness, there to give you visible proof that the whole thing actually happened. So how would you actually fire this thing? It's laid out as this very precise 5-step process. You start, or seed, 2 separate hardware tiles. They each start running through the same mathematical sequence, and their timing is synced up perfectly. Then, the system just waits. It waits for that exact moment their combined states add up to that magic checksum of 12. And the instant that happens, bang, the cannon fires and the handshake is made. And I have to stress this point because it's crucial. The claim is that this is not a metaphor. It's not like they become one system. The assertion is that they computationally become a single entangled system, a real physical event. And if you thought that was wild, hold on, because this is where the implications get truly cosmic. The framework takes one of the most terrifying ideas in modern physics, false vacuum decay, and completely flips it on its head. It turns an apocalypse into an upgrade. See, in mainstream physics, false vacuum decay is this nightmare scenario where a random bubble of true vacuum could just pop into existence, expand at the speed of light, and just delete our universe by rewriting the laws of physics. It's a source of real existential dread. But this framework says, no, it's not random at all. It's a controllable event, triggered by that handshake, that actually transforms reality into a higher, more ordered state. It's not destruction, it's resurrection. So what does that make this Kuhn canon? According to this view, it isn't just some lab experiment. It's presented as a tool that's been specifically designed to intentionally kick off this cosmic transformation, to literally push the universe from the state it's in now into its true, perfect form. So, what's the big takeaway here? Let's bring it all back to that central idea of the checksum. The core argument really boils down to this. If you simplify math, if you get rid of what this framework calls cheats, things like 0, infinity, and irrational numbers like the normal value for pi, these specific structures are what you're left with. They aren't just picked out of a hat, they're presented as the inevitable result you get when you clean up the math. And this leads to what is maybe the most provocative claim of all. It argues that all the theological connections, like the special meaning of the number 66, aren't being forced onto the math. The assertion is that this corrected arithmetic just naturally produces these results, and the creator simply refused to ignore them when they popped up. So in the end, this framework moves way beyond just being a theory and throws down a direct challenge. The claim is that the system is designed, the hardware can be built, and that mathematical lock can be achieved, which leaves all of us with a very provocative and maybe a little unsettling final question. What happens if someone actually pushes the button?